you will not come on time. Despite the fact, we ourselves would have loved to hear the Prime Minister taking us on during the lockdown times and what is all ahead. But be that as it may, as we have all heard, that the list of books we have shared in our invite, but we will also share it again on the WhatsApp group because somebody's asked what books, sir, you have written. I'd sent you that invite asking. I will just read that invite itself. So the topic for today is reservation, public employment. And amongst us, we have Honorable Mr. Justice Kannan Krishnamurthy, popularly known as Justice K. Kannan. We are quite lucky that he had been in the Punjab and Haryana High Court. So we have been connected in different ways. One was when he was a judge, and he had been closely associated with the mediation, and he put the mediation things in the much forward way. And as during the lockdowns, it's simpliciter happened that we just got connected through the LinkedIn, and thereafter we requested sir, and sir as usual was kind enough to accept our first time session when we had just started these webinar series to give the insights on the first in the mediation, then on the motor accidents, then we had on the mediation where we had Mr. Panchu and Jawad. That session has been widely accepted on the YouTube as well as on the Facebook. His Lordship, after being a judge, he was a chairman of the Railway Claims Tribunal. That again, MACT and railway claims that we will ask after the today's session, how was his experience as in the Railways Claim Tribunal, or we can ask right now also. Then being an avid reader and a writer as well, he's an expert on all aspects. He has written books on different fields, which ordinarily to write even one article, invariably one feels jittery even to start the lines. To write an article is a tedious job, but to complete and compile a book itself is a Herculean task. I do not know what terminology we use after the Herculean task, because writing one book is a Herculean task, but writing so many books, we have Vibha Dhiman, she is nodding that yes, writing so many books. Sir, books have been written that too by renowned publishers, by Helsbury Laws of India on wills and succession, Landlord and Tenants, again on the Wilsbury, then Principles of Insurance by M.N. Srinivasan and Justice Kannan by LexisNexis. He's the editor of one of the most renowned books of Modi's textbook on medical jurisprudence and taxology, Mullah's Indian Registration Act, Mullah's Sales of Goods Act and Partnership, Parak's Indian Succession Act, and as we said that he's a trained mediator. The books, two aspects while seeing the books itself would be coming forth, that invariably he has slightly revisited the books of the authors who are well accomplished. And they are published by publishers who have created their own niche within the field of law. So the publishers asking him to revisit that, and the books of authors of immense knowledge being revisited shows the volume of knowledge and his insights. So without taking much time, as we invariably say, people come to hear to the speaker, not to the person who is connecting them. But as they say, for an advocate or anyone, it's not easy to leave the mic. But they also say that the person should know when to stop. And yesterday we had a session only on art of communication. And the first thing they said that you should know when to stop and when to start. So I have taking cue from yesterday, I think now is the time to stop and ask sir to take over. Since the topic is wide, it takes wide spectrums on reservations, and sir knowledge on reservation again. To again, it's time and again to say therein that sir has an immense knowledge. It would be just saying like ice floats on water. In the same way, I need not re-testify that fact because everyone knows it. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, because it's always a pleasure to connect to persons who I have worked with, and I feel like coming back again and again. So to get back to Chandigarh is the feeling I have when I speak to the lawyers of Chandigarh predominantly. The topic today of what we have, reservation is not about all law. There is so much of politics in it. That's why you will find there is no other piece of legislation which has been responsible for so many judicial pronouncements that have themselves been the cause for amendments to the Constitution. Again and again, it's a kind of a tussle between the judiciary and the parliamentarians, who are the representatives of the people. One trying to give the lead to the other. It is like that. Or one trying to annul what another person has said. So if it has happened like this, the reason we must recognize is that this is a particular subject where we want to assure to people justice, the social justice. We have the social justice of what the reservation seeks to promote. It's not defined anywhere in the Constitution. However, you have a reference about it in the preamble to the Constitution itself. When we secure to ourselves what? Justice. It talks about social, economic, and political. So therefore, you will notice that economic and political, when we are having, we must understand at the very fundamental aspect that social justice is not about all poverty alleviation. It's not an economic aspect. Social justice is when we are saying what the society, when the society reckons certain persons as equal, where in the eyes of the society, you get an immediate attention. This is a major issue for us. In fact, our constitution makers, they found that particularly with Ambedkar being in the draft committee, he said, what is the problem about the caste which has created the kind of divisions in our society? Ambedkar would say, I quote him, it's a state of slavery, a society in which some men are forced to accept from others the purposes which control their conduct. So when Ambedkar was seeing that caste itself has been the reason why in the social gradation people are pulled down, then we need in some sense some measures which will bring them up. When we talk about reservation, we will notice again, this is something which is happening through pronouncements recently, that reservation itself is not a fundamental right. It seems like a shock to many persons. But when we talk about reservation, we talk about those aspects of what are contained there essentially through Article 14, 15, 16. Article 14 states in a typical fashion with these words that there is a protection of equality, the equal protection of laws. And 15, which talks about education and special provision to women and children. 16 talks about employment. Now, 15 and 16, are they exceptions to Article 14? No. On the other hand, Article 15 and 16 is a manner of understanding Article 14. So when we have provided for certain reservations under Article 15 and 16, why do we say that reservation itself is not a fundamental right? The fundamental right is equality. That is what is fundamental. Now, when the state is given some powers to make some laws, it is a kind of facilitation which the Constitution makes to you. There is no one, somebody comes and says, no, I want a sure discrimination to be practiced in favor of someone. It's on the other hand, equality is a fundamental bedrock on which we have some constructs. If you must secure equality, certain things must be done. That the state, each state in its, India being a wide country, a large country, the states will see, depending on the composition of the population, the caste structure, the social differences, what types of privileges could be given. In the manner of public employment, what can be done? So that is how the whole thing we will see. How, if it is not fundamental, reservation is not fundamental right, what is it that we are talking about? Why is there so much of heartache when something is denied? And why is there so much of litigation about it? I thought I will give you an idea why reservation is perhaps the first thing, or what I said is we need equality, and therefore a reservation to certain classes of people. And it is not poverty alleviation program that we are talking about. It's not an economic equality only that we're saying. Social equality of what we secured, what we want to secure, social justice is how it is. Now, something more of what we see, we will see as I present to you. What Article 16, what is the composition, what is the content of this Article 16? That is something which we will see. And some of the concepts of what this reservation talks about. And because you don't find those concepts used, stated anywhere under the Article 16 itself, such as a vertical reservation, a horizontal reservation, a catching up rule, a rota quota system, roster points, a creamy layer, the various concepts. So we'll run through these concepts. And then what are the initial cases which were responsible for changes of law? How did they come about? What was the understanding of courts in trying to secure what Article 16 provided? And then subsequently, there have been amendments. What is the reason for these amendments? How did this amendment make a difference? What was the tussle which required that kind of amendment from the parliament and to all the states as well? But because we are talking about amendments to a constitution, it's just not the parliament. So all the states also have to make that affirmation. And the later judgments which tried to explain what this amendments were and how they were to be understood. And what is the statistics which have come about? How have we done? How have we worked this principle of reservation? And what will be the way forward? Seems like a large picture. I'll try to make it as simple as possible for you. And because of what anyone can access through judgments is not my attempt at all. I want you to understand certain things beyond what the provisions by a bare reading can provide to you. So I will take
probably you will have to switch off that light because that light is reflecting on your this thing.
Is it fine? Am I
not this one, at the back. The front is okay.
At the back, yeah.
Because this at your back.
And I'm sorry for this break. Now and then, if the light comes, I'll probably shift myself. Is it okay?
The light is coming and you're not wing. Now it's perfect, sir.
It's fine?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
No, it's fine because too much of sunshine was there.
Okay. I require.
Yes,
I don't want to be sitting in darkness. All right. Let me bring
some
light.
you radiate energy and light, so we don't require any light more.
Okay. I was telling you about certain bare provisions to see the Article 16 itself, the way it pans out. You will notice that Article 16 to start with, Article 16.1, equality of opportunity to public employment and appointment is what Article 16.1 talks about. And the non-ineligibility or non-discrimination of Article 16. Therefore, from an equality of opportunity, how will it come? There shall be no discrimination, Article 16.2. Article 16.3, it says now some provision relating to the relevance of residence, place of residence could also be made. So therefore, when we are talking about non-discrimination on the ground of sex, caste and things, you make the first dent. You can make, however, some residence as a necessary criterion. For regional preferences could be made, is how you will find at Article 13. Now, the whole key to understanding Article 16 and how the courts have seen is when the first reference to a preference apart from the residence is given under Article 4, Clause 4. The reservation of backward classes in posts not adequately represented. Now, that is where, if it is not adequately represented, you make some reservation to certain classes of persons. That is what the Article Clause 4 says. Now, there have been amendments. If you notice, the initial phases of the Constitution, the courts was trying to see how much of reservation is okay. How do I give reservation? This is how initially it started with. And that became an issue for the parliamentarians. The way the courts were interpreting, was it acceptable to us? That was what was responsible for several of the amendments which came about. So let us see what was something which was important. If I would see public employment in the first area, you will notice in reservation, matters relating to education were the first cases which were coming before the Supreme Court. What is the communal GO from the Madras presidency, Champagam Rajan was the first case in it to start with. So subsequently, when you see Article 16 being put to test, M.R. Balaji versus Mysore, this is probably from the south, it brought for the first time an assumption that how much of reservation would be all right. And the assumption is don't go beyond 50%. That will not be correct, because when we are talking about non-discrimination, to provide for preference in excess of 50% will be wrong. You'll notice the Constitution does not say anything about how much a percentage was all right. It was the courts which were trying to understand and give out to the people that 50% is what is appropriate. That was what was started initially. And therefore, not all states were happy. Tamil Nadu was not happy, because that was a state from where several of the social reformers made bigger changes. They attacked some caste being the dominant caste, and they have literally wielded to themselves all the power, political power, and therefore they said there has to be a larger representation. And in fact, it was only from Tamil Nadu, the Advocate General at the time, Nehru, had sought his assistance. How do we secure some protection for our own laws, which cannot be challenged in court again? Then we had a Schedule 9. Put in Schedule 9 and bring an amendment to the Constitution, say any law within Schedule 9 cannot itself be challenged. So therefore, it was through this Tamil Nadu came for the first time. He introduced a percentage more than 50%, legislation providing for that, and cast it in Schedule 9. And you had several other states doing the same thing. Andhra Pradesh exceeded, it sought to exceed more than 50%, it was stalled. Maharashtra has more than 50%. You have Rajasthan more than 50%. So therefore, there have been states who have exceeded this 50% mark, and there are challenges to them in the Supreme Court itself. But like I said, to start with, there is a lot of politics in the way we understand reservation. And therefore, even the Supreme Court wouldn't like to touch all cases relating to reservation. They are there in the court awaiting adjudication. That is the way we started. That was in 1963, Balaji said that. The second important pronouncements which came in the manner of recruitment, this 50%, within how much time should it be given? Supposing you provide for 50% and you're not able to fill in all the posts, what do you do? And so later, if there are vacancies, do we take it subsequently? Can you go to the subsequent year, and then whatever vacancies which are not filled up, can you fill them up later? This came in other cases like Southern Railway, Rangachari, that was a 1962 case again. Devadasan versus Union of India, that was in 1964. Perhaps for the first time it was saying, you can't spill over, you can't carry forward anything of vacancy, what has already resulted. You can't fill them up later beyond the period. So carry forward rule, when it was done, it was struck down in Devadasan. And Punjab and Haryana has given a whole lot of grist to understanding of our reservation, particularly in the field of service law. Service law, if anyone must understand in India, it should be only to arrive in Chandigarh to know what the law is. Because somewhere by the fact that the composition of Chandigarh with two states capital there, and the Chandigarh itself being a union territory with a large amount of bureaucrats there, they are the people who can really be fighting so many things. They can fight on ideologies. They are the persons who literally drive so many things. Or what politicians want, they may not be able to carry through unless the bureaucrats also are supportive to what the politicians want. Everyone understands that. So when I'm saying this, I know I'm treading on areas of politics, but that is how it is. It is impossible not to be talking about politics when we're talking about reservation. It is like you can't talk about sunlight without being bright, without making reference to its brightness. The same way, they come one to another. Another one which was an important consideration was this reservation per appointment. Would this also allow promotions to be available for reservation? Whether it included promotions as well was a major issue, and it was stated in Akhil Bharatiya Soshit Karanchari. That was a railway case, which was in the year 1981. Reservation of appointments and posts under Article 16(4) would include promotions also. So this was how it was. Now look at what's happening. I've told you the relation to in 1 year you'll have to completely exhaust it. You can't carry forward. You can't have more than 50%. You can't. You would include promotion also. All these decisions were sought to be rewritten because from the time when it was formed, initially, Kelkar, the Backward Classes Commission, Kelkar's report relied on 1931 statistics, and it saw somewhere close to the numbers of what they were seeing. They were Kelkar's saw 2,399 backward classes. That was a large number, out of which 839 of them were most backward. So he was looking at backwardness from the point of view of economic prosperity, to what extent they've come. What was the employment which they had secured? And what was the cost? What are these people? Who are these people who are backward? He identified several classes of people who could be identified in turn through caste. So therefore, he saw that caste was itself one of the prime indicators to see where lies the backwardness. So therefore, this was Kelkar's report. He was able to identify caste. This was the first Backward Classes Commission. For a long time, there was a big lull. No one talked about how do we empower them, what we should be doing with this backwardness. Nobody talked about it. But then it was during Morarji Desai's prime ministership, that was after the emergency period, he set up a Mandal Commission. He gave a report. He was relying mostly on the statistics of what we have collected during the census in 1931, and looked into the first Backward Classes Commission report. I took the identification of caste as the indicator for backwardness, and then it also recommended something which was significant. He said 27% reservation you will have for backward classes. This was when it came, the report came, they didn't want to give any publicity to that. They simply put it under carpet because they were suspectful. The politicians didn't feel very comfortable. As a large percentage of another slice of 27% to be given, will this be accepted by people? Was really something. But there was a simmering discontent from several sections. There were people who were saying, in spite of the reservation of what you have, we have not secured adequate representation at all places. Look at this. What is the magic about the 50%? What is the magic about this reservation to 17%, 15% and 7%? You must remember this. We were trying to see a population when there were 250 millions, when Mandal Commission was seeing 250 million people belong to certain classes of persons, were still backward. They were not scheduled caste, they were not scheduled tribe. And there were other classes also. Of the if you're looking 250 million population out of a billion population, they literally about 1/4. They were seeing, and then for other classes of people like a scheduled tribals of some places like in Bihar, in Orissa, in the northeast, some of the tribals. He identified there was again a fairly large population, somewhere close to about, you had 100 million people. This is still a large number. this percentages probably of the total population, you have somewhere close to about 15% of the people are scheduled caste, or about 7% of the people are scheduled tribes. You can't have public appointments or education without providing at least the proportion to which they bear to the whole population. Therefore, at least 15% for scheduled caste, they must have education. They must have employment in the manner in which they are given. Again, notice this. When we are talking about public appointments, don't assume that it's all appointments which are taking place. You'll be surprised if I tell you that the public appointments take as low a percentage as somewhere close to about 2.5% of the total employment in the organized and the unorganized labor. So therefore, when we are talking about public appointments, why is it only against public appointments that we have reservation and not against private employments? The answer is simple. Because when we are talking about fundamental rights, we are talking about the rights which the state guarantees. And if the state provides employment, it is the state to which, against which you can make that claim. This again, you must understand that the state's assurance is not without any meaning. Today, if you ask what gives respectability to people, to be associated in a state service means a lot. Be it just a sweeper or a gardener, or what salary they earn is far more than what a private employment can give. And therefore, our upward mobility, what has happened through appointments, they are seen through the eyes of how public appointments have been given to these people. How the public appointment gives prestige in the manner of social reckoning of how they are seen as persons who are recognized and who are rewarded with employments. So therefore, when we are seeing even a small percentage, if there is a clamor for representations, it is because state appointment is seen as an important indicator of prestige. You know, all this happened, and when Mandal Commission, when VP Singh came, he decided to go ahead and then have this report of what was there somewhere collecting dust. He pulled it out and said, now we are going to enforce it. Mandal Commission provided 27%, and therefore not everyone was prepared to accept it. An additional slice of reservation in public appointment in education of 27%, this is not going to be done. This is again on the basis of caste. Why will it be accepted? This is making a further division in the society. You found the southern states were not as expressive about the resentment and resistance as the persons in the north. It's perhaps because in the south for a long period, the understanding of social justice and accommodating large sections of those backward classes were already there, and therefore when it was 27%, it was even less than what they were already offering. Therefore there was no resistance. In the north there was big resistance because you didn't have that kind of a reform, a social reform of what had taken place already down south. Narayana Guru from Kerala, then you had E.V. Ramasamy from Tamil Nadu. They had all worked very hard and secured to large sections of backward classes enough representation. So therefore, the North reacted very violently, and it had to be this law, whether it is correct or not, what was to be seen. So it was brought in the first decision, which anyone wanting to understand reservation must understand. Indira Sani in 1993 gave that law. It said 4 things. Indira Sani had upheld the implementation of separate reservation for the backward classes central government, ordered the exclusion of creamy layer. This was something which the constitution makers did not think of. The parliamentarians did not know of this expression. The Supreme Court came with some expression like a creamy layer. What do you understand creamy layer? When you have milk, or buttermilk, Now, how is it taken? When there is a curd, you try to take you put a mattu, or what we say in Tamil. I don't know what is the expression there. I wouldn't even know what the English expression is. Or what foams. The foam comes up. That is, the creamy layer is that which is not in the lower. It's the upper sections. So the upper echelons, they were trying to see only the economic criteria to be applied for understanding the creamy layer. They will not be entitled to any privileges, and therefore that shall not be given. When they were talking about the backward classes, they were not talking about it for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, because they understood scheduled caste and scheduled tribe had other serious problems. There had been social exclusion in a big way. And no matter how economically empowered they were also at all times suffering disabilities of the very tag of a caste. So therefore, that was different for backward classes who are propertied class. Wherever the income is more than something, they will not be entitled to any exclusion. They'll be brought out. They will not be given any preservation. So reservation. They would have an exclusion of reservation. And restrict reservation, again, it should be reinterpreted Balaji and said 50% shall be the maximum, and separate reservation for economically poor shall not be done. So Indira Sani was there saying economic factor criterion for reservation is wrong. It will be not reservation in the proper sense. And then they said further difference was made in Vinod Kumar in 1996 after Indira Sani, that relaxation of qualifying marks and standard of valuation in matters of reservation shall not be given. So if all these things were done, then you can find each one of them of what was Indira Sani, what was Balaji, what was Vinod Kumar. Each one was sought to be annulled by the Supreme Court, by the Parliament. So through amendments of what you can see, the 77th Amendment of 1995, reservation in promotion, because Indira Sani said, no, there can't be reservation for promotion. Then they said 77th Amendment said there can be reservation in promotion. And then Ajit Singh Janua, this is a matter which came from Punjab, from Chandigarh, Punjab and Haryana High Court, the Janua 1, Janua 2, that was in 1999, where they said catching a principle, or what they were saying. I was saying some of the principles which are there available, which we must know even when we understand amendments. I'll just say one or two things of what we must know when we are talking about reservations. One is a vertical reservation. Now, what do we understand by vertical reservation? That which is the gross minimum with that shall be protected. You will not touch anything. If there are 100 persons, 100 seats, and you say scheduled caste will have 15%, 7% to scheduled tribe, what will you do? You will take by the order of merit. Understand merit to mean for the present only some marks, or if it is whatever is the performance which assigning something. If you want to say 50% will be for open general, you will provide for the top 50, irrespective of caste, you will see everything. So therefore, if there are scheduled caste and scheduled tribe coming within the first 50, irrespective of the fact that they have secured the representation in the general category itself, you will provide apart from that 50% of where they may have figured in, they will be assured of the 15 seats. You'll have to have in the lower category, the next block, you will provide for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. So therefore, this MBC reservation also, the most backward and backward OBC reservation also, they're provided for vertical reservation. Therefore, they may be consuming their own entitlement in the general category. They will also figure in their own respective class or the caste, the percentage of reservation which they have. Therefore, it is vertically, it will simply divide and secure to themselves the percentage of seats, irrespective of what they've secured already in terms of merit in the general category. Horizontal reservation is what is normally understood as when we talk about reservation for the ex-servicemen or women somewhere, or handicapped people, 3%. These are horizontal in the sense, supposing out of the 100 seats, the first you take in the order of merit. the number 1, number 20, number 30. Within the first 50 itself, you have 3 persons of handicap. And apart from that, like vertical reservation, you will be able to provide for a particular percentage, 50%. You can't provide 3%. That it is horizontal in the sense, if they have already come in the general category of a non-reserved category, then they cannot claim again to a particular percentage. That's horizontal reservation. Catching up rule of what Janua said was, if a person in the order of recruitment, you provide for promotion, because I said, Indira Sani said, you can't promote people only on the basis of caste, but then you allow for certain seats to be reserved somewhere, and you promote a person to provide for that vacancy to be filled up. And then if there are 2 persons, a person who is in the reserved category comes to the higher post because there is a vacancy in the higher post, then the senior in the lower post, the moment he also comes on his own term of promotion, he will catch up with the seniority. Therefore, a person who has a seniority at a lower level, the moment he moves up, he will catch up. So the catching up principle was also provided there in Janua. Now, all these things, this catching up principle was there. There is again another principle also, the rota and quota. Quota, you understand, each percentage you have a quota. Rota is normally in the context of certain 2 different categories where you have direct recruits, you have promotees in something. So you, how much of how much number, what is the number which will assign to a person who comes from direct recruit? How many persons will you take from the promotion? So these are normally taken by certain percentages which are available. And now when you have to secure somebody there to a higher post, and you provide to certain class of persons, you therefore draw a kind of a rota quota rule is done through a kind of a table. They will say something like this, number 1, 2, 3, 4, you will have all these things given. And then the 5th is a person who comes through direct recruitment. Then you have 5, 6, 7, 8. Then this person, the next post will come through a promotion quota. So therefore, you assign various places in a kind of a roster. You draw up a roster, see that persons are filled in at various places. So these things, when they had all come through administrative instructions, and when the Supreme Court was defining each one of them, and then it was also saying how much of seats can you can give. The amendments had to be brought down. A lot of changes. When Ajit Singh said that affirmative action stops where the reverse discrimination happens, and reserve category roster promotees is a general category promotees, how they should be understood. They were all sought to be modified. 82nd Amendment was the first one in 2000. They lowered the qualifying norms, which Vinod Kumar supported for promotion. 85th Amendment 2002, retention of seniority. You cannot catch up. If somebody has gone, a person from a reserve category who is a junior in a lower rank, if he is promoted to fill up a vacancy, he'll retain his seniority. He will not lose it to another person who is a senior at the lower level. So that was how the 85th Amendment was brought. And when this 82nd Amendment and 85th Amendment, 77th Amendment, they were all brought for challenge in M. Nagaraj. M. Nagaraj was therefore to see how do we understand this, because these changes were coming through subclass 4 and 4A and 4B. And they said if reservation and promotions have to be given, there has to be quantifiable data. You can't simply provide promotion and say promotion, there are inadequate representation there in higher post, therefore I'll give a promotion. They said no, gather data, collect data and show that it is justified. So that is what they said. And Nair Society versus Bir Mastan in 2009, they said reservation provisions or enabling provisions, The state is not bound to provide reservation, but it is empowered to do so on its own discretion. So therefore, this was the first major pronouncement where you had very clear understanding of what the Supreme Court is looking at. Don't have a right to demand a reservation. These are enabling provisions. The state will try to do that. Now, recently, probably a powerful articulation comes through a judge who has been our judge from Punjab, Justice Gupta. He says in Mukesh Kumar is the state of Uttarakhand, when Uttarakhand did not provide enough percentage of persons for the schedule for backward class, and there was a challenge. You had not provided for reservation to 27% or 15%, the way it says. The state has not done that. I have a right to be appointed to the post. The Supreme Court said, no, you don't have a fundamental right, brother. You can't have it because the state it is which has to see whether it gives that kind of representation or not. So Mukesh Kumar, which was passed on 20/2/2020, that was a major pronouncement because it captured the headlines almost in all papers that there is no fundamental right to reservation. They were not saying anything new. That was always the law. And that articulation came in a way which was very powerful there in the judgment. And therefore, I'm told there is even an application for a review. But all the same, that has been the law at all times. Directly under Article 32, you will not come. It could be a matter which can be brought in challenge under Article 226 in a state. And if you are not satisfied, it will go to a higher forum. That is how almost all the decisions of what you will find that have gone in the service law, they've come through the high courts of certain assurances which the state government gave, challenges made, then bring it up to the Supreme Court. That is how it has gone. And now, some principles apart from that, you must know this. How have we fared about the reservation? I already told you this reservation, when we are talking about just 2% of the public appointments, they still have a lot of value. There was a recent study which some Oxford scholars from India, of course, I can see Deepak Kumar, Banu Pratap, Archana Agarwal, these are persons from our universities, and they have made some publication from JNU, another person publication in a Journal of Asian and African Studies. Their report is extraordinary, of what they're seeing. And they notice, among other things, the rural urban divide is so predominant. You find in public appointments, the urban people bag a lot more than the rural. And among other reasons, they find proficiency in English to be a major factor. That for me was a big surprise. But then that seems to be in the manner of public appointments. The indicator of your own upward mobility is seen through still your proficiency in a language which is a foreign language. So therefore, there are certain pointers for us to know when we are talking about being literate. Probably that is the way a global trend. English is occupying some importance, like what you do not want to assign to it, but all the same, it has a very strong reason. And it also says things perhaps which we understand. Reservation and government jobs in India has been significant marker for seeing the prosperity and economic, just not economic improvement, the social improvement and upbringing itself is seen through the appointments. There is, they said, educational attainment and achievement of individual is strongly associated with representation in government jobs in India. So that is again a very important thing. You have a government job, then probably your educational achievement and your attainments, they are seen in higher reckoning. And I was looking at some statistics. We have done rather well, but not too well. You can't simply yet complain how much more years we'll have reservation. Don't ever see like that. You must know that there is no development if we don't have all the people coming along with us. Who has denied them education? Who has denied them employment? Why did they contest? That is not what we will say. Because you must understand, education institutions or public appointments of what we are talking about. The so-called merit of what we are seeing is the merit is how you assign marks all of us know that is not really the indicator. That perhaps in a large way, people understand a person as being bright if he has secured good marks. But that is not the only thing. Look at the success of people around you. Now, who amongst the lawyers are doing well? Not necessarily the persons who are the university first rankers. That is hardly ever an indication, because there is so much else which university examinations cannot assess for you. And also, that upliftment of what we want to bring to people cannot be merely be seen through how we have performed in examination. We need the whole society to improve. Now look where we have done. In the class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4 post, in the year 1959, you had the scheduled caste people 17.24%, 65 it is 17%, 74 it is 18%, 84 it is 20%, 2000 it is 16%. Again, you say somewhere around 15, 16. The maximum that we have gone was 1995. Class 4 appointments where the number is probably a little more than the population itself. I'm taking only the SC and ST. I'm not taking OBCs there. Class 3, again, you find what started in 6.95% in 1959. In 2000, we have come to about 16.24%. So therefore, it's again, it conforms to the percentage of people in the population. You have the representation in class 3. Now, class 1 and class 2 is surely a serious issue. We had at the time in 1959, after nearly 10 years after our independence, more than a little after 10 years, you had just 2.38%. And for class 1 post, just 1.18%. Now, there is such a, and in 2000, the maximum that we have come to is 11%. In class 2, it's about 12%. So we are still falling much below their percentage in population where they occupy the higher post. And so long as we don't have a reasonably good distribution of our public appointments as well as in education, we won't be able to say that we have progressed well. So therefore, you must know, when we are talking about reservation, the reservation we originally conceived of 10-year period, and 10-year period keeps extending every now and then. It's just not only politics. That we have not been able to achieve enough is what is the reason why we are perforced to provide for this extension. Again, you must know, you will not crib about it. You must know that public appointments, or what we are talking about, is just about 2.7% of all jobs across the country in regular employments in organized and unorganized sector. 97% of private sector jobs, which are entrepreneurial ventures which provide employments, and you don't have reservation there. So what do you see in all this? I was looking when I wanted to present to you this picture. We need a better understanding to reservation as being necessitous in order that our country is seen as developing wholesale. We need to be securing this growth, employment opportunities, educational opportunities across the board, across all caste divides. And if you're looking for caste, there is nothing wrong in seeing caste there, because where do we see caste? Supposing in a hospital you go, where is the doubt that if they're saying all persons who are sick, please come to a shorter queue, persons who come for other persons who want to take OP slips, you come to another queue, you speed up the process for sick persons. Is it wrong? No. There you understand, you need to identify certain classes of persons to whom you provide something immediately. That is the way we must understand reservation. We must see that they're required to be identified through caste, and that is the truth. In Kelkar, in Mandal, in later research papers of what you have just now referred to, what has come through an Asian journal, they see the backwardness in India is associated with caste. Whatever you are able to discard, because you see Christianity, later Islam, Sikhism, all these religions, even as they came into India, and as they were new religions, the Sikh religion, which was a new religion as well, all of them, they thought caste is not the thing. We will rise above these caste differences. But all of us know that without caste, they don't exist. In Christianity, there is caste. In Islam, there is caste. In Sikhism, again, we know how those divisions in caste exist. So therefore, that is the fundamental marker. That is kind of a thing which has existed over 2,000, 3,000 years. A social division of what existed for understanding work and to distribute work in somewhere over a period of time, it got perverted. They were not to be seen. All types of activities, all physical activities were not seen at par. One was seen as better than, higher than the other. Source of education, access to education came to be delivered to certain classes of people. The whole lot of people who did not have that access, they were not securing appointments over a period of time, and appointments were just not merely within the family, they had to be given elsewhere. So therefore, our caste system worked itself in ways which probably was conceived of 2,000, 3,000 years back for some lofty purposes. It has lost its meaning. But they have meaning, if there are anything, it's to identify backwardness and to empower them. And therefore, that I would think is the reason why we have this thing. We must accept that this will exist for some time. And this can all go. When will it go? The caste itself going out. In Punjab University, I've had occasion to address the audience, and I said, you have matrimonial advertisements, and in advertisements, a Kshatriya wants a Kshatriya, a person, a Brahmin wants a Brahmin. You have all these kind of things. Have you seen one advertisement which says, I'm a Dalit, I want another Dalit? It is not like that. In fact, for that, we want, every other caste wants to identify itself by the so-called superiority. But we have pushed a whole lot of people who don't feel superior. That is not the correct thing to happen. When we are talking about social justice, we are talking about a justice where the society is able to see each other without any distinction. That can happen only in a state of reasonableness, reasonable upbringing of all people. At some point of time, the caste must wear out of us. When will it wear out? Annihilation of caste would happen through intercaste marriages. That probably is the way it should happen. And what do we do in our private lives to ensure that we keep our vocabulary clean of caste innuendos? You don't say, oh, you belong to the caste, that's how you'll behave. Don't ever say that. Oh, he's like that, he thinks too high, he belongs to a caste. Take away from your vocabulary all the caste innuendos. And that is the way we will provide for a society without a caste. And that will happen probably over a period of time. Our generation has not been able to see that. Through our children, probably our children behave better. They don't have those caste inclinations, or at least we must ensure they don't have those kind of propensities. We make them see things differently. So this comes to close to about 45 minutes of what I wanted to say. I'm sure I'm leaving a lot of things. I didn't take you through those case decisions and things, but if you ask me, I'll tell you. This public appointment, the way the various amendments came about, how you can see through every one of those amendments through some law which was sought to be annulled through an amendment, is how this understanding of Article 16 comes about. So with this, I conclude my small talk, and I will be prepared to field your question of whatever doubt you have in relation to reservation, because it's a large field. We have taken only one Article 16, and out of Article 16, 4A, 4B, the amendments of which have come about, is why they came about, is what my attempt had been to explain to you. So with this I close. I look forward to your questions on this. Probably
the topic is such that the questions will continue to pour. But once, since we have students also, and sometimes the lawyers not totally into the service matters, I would just like, if you could explain, once we had said about quota, rota and roster point, what are the subtle difference between rota and roster point, so that people could understand as to how that roster point, when we were saying, like you said, in the rota point, you will have 1, 4, 6. And for the purposes of roster point, etc., how do you explain the roster point? Because roster point is also invariably slightly connected with that.
Yeah, To lawyers who practice, I wish I could have a screen to show to you, because I'm speaking through a cell phone. I'm not able to share a screen for you. Because you look, persons who have access to computers, just type out and find out the roster points of various government. It can be Haryana, it can be Punjab, any one of them, or probably any other state. They give you how it is worked. It's a kind of a simple arithmetic. When we are talking about roster, a person who is a practitioner in law understands what is this judge is in this roster now, this person is in this person. That is, a roster is a kind of a pre-assigned system of allocation. That's a roster. So when we are talking about a roster in an employment terminology, we are talking about an employer's manner of assigning various positions in the organization. So if he has 100 seats to be available, then we have reservation of various classes of people. This reservation comes and categorization comes in various ways. One is reservation through caste, of what we saw. Another could be in the category of people such as women, men combination. There could be another category like ex-servicemen, where you have a different type of reservation to be given. And it is just not this category again of direct recruits, of persons who are promotees. How much of promotees can you have? Typically, it happens during your recruitment to judges, or to persons who could be familiar, persons who are practitioners of law or familiar to the system of recruitment of judges who are recruited at the lowest level. You are recruited at the junior division. All young practitioners of law who are finished law, after examination is held, they are taken in at the lowest. And then they provide for, because any progression in service can have meaning only if you make possible promotions. So therefore, there could be promotion, and there could be also lateral inductions, like a person who comes directly at the district level. How many district judges could be recruited at 1 year? How many persons could be taken from this? Now, in the manner of allocation of this, also, apart from the reservation of what you have, you require this kind of how much of recruitees, direct recruitees, how many promotees. This has to go in a particular system of allocation.
I think you will have to relog because your screen is frozen.
Uh-oh. Relog. I close and come back again. Is that how it is?
Yes. No, I think it's fine. No, it's fine.
Fine? Yeah.
Yeah.
So therefore, it is allocation. When I'm talking about roster, I'm talking about the manner of allocation. When I'm talking about the quota, I'm talking about how much is to be allocated. So how it is, again, when you're talking about rota, all these expressions are simple English expressions. So you understand that like that. And when you're talking about, they're all intimately connected, like accord and satisfaction. What do you understand? Accord is satisfaction as well. So the same way, when you're talking about rota and quota, what do we see? You assign a quota, you put them against a particular place, and a system of administration takes place through a rotation. When is the direct recruitment? When is the promotee? Then when is the scheduled caste? Where is the general category? So you have several types of factors to go into preparation of a roster. In that roster, you provide for certain quotas. So all these are done through a predetermined chart of how it could be done. So there is a certain understanding for people who are competing for posts. When am I going to be considered as eligible? Where is the vacancy? Where do I fill in? How many more persons are above me who would be taken in? So therefore, they are seen like that. The rota quota system works through a provision for the rotational representation and the quota which is to be on a particular percentage which is predetermined, and through a chart which will fit them in the various places. So this is in simplest terms of how I can explain. I'm sure you'll be able to look in and find out.
Rota, according to you, would mean a shorter word for primarily related from a word of rotation, because you mean to say that, let's assume there's a chart and you assign that first post will go to the direct recruit, second is to go to the promotee. Then within that, you can have wheels within wheels, that there is a reservation also for a promotion, or because in some cases they say there will be promotion, reservation for promotion. In some they say there will not be a reservation for promotion.
Correct. So
yes,
that's correct.
Okay. Now I'm unmuting Anurag primarily, though he wants to understand the difference between a vertical and a horizontal reservation, but still we can ask this question directly. Anurag Jain. Anurag, you will have to unmute yourself.
I have unmuted myself. My video is in a problem. Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
Sir, my question, I am finding it little difficult to understand what is how this vertical and horizontal reservation work. So kindly explain it again in with an example.
Yeah. Simple example. Let us say like this. We are talking about certain reservations are not to be compromised at all. What are those reservations? Those reservations where that which you seek to empower through provision of a minimum percentage of representation. That is, caste-based reservations or vertical reservations. So, vertical reservations are the minimum that they shall be entitled to. There is no question of losing out their reservation to be shared with anyone else. They can't share with, this is unshareable. You can take it like that. But horizontal reservation is shareable reservation. You can take it along with the unreserved people also. To put through an example of what I already gave to you, if you are talking about 15% reservation for scheduled caste and 7% for scheduled tribe, we are first preparing a list of persons who will be unreserved category, the general category. So, because we don't take the reserve category initially, only because we have secured to them a sure percentage. There is not, they are not going to be sharing that number with anyone else. So, what we will do is we fill the general category first. How is the general category filled? In the order of merit. The merit, what is merit? Merit can be understood in case where you are talking about admission to a college, your marks. If we're talking about appointment to a post, they probably, whether you are a postgraduate or a graduate, there are marks which are even assigned there. Interview, how much mark will you have for interview? So you provide there, in that you find the first 50 candidates to be taken. How will you go in the order of merit? You look at the highest mark, the 100 mark, 99, 92, 90, 93, 95. I'll go for the highest of that 50 persons who have the highest percentage. Let us talk the persons above 90% to 100%. There are 50 candidates. Now I'll take the 50 candidates. I'll not look to caste originally. Later I will probably, if I want to look at the caste, supposing a scheduled caste person has 96%, a OBC person has 93%. You will all be taken in general category, and a scheduled caste or a scheduled tribe or a OBC who has been absorbed in a general category will not lose the number when he comes to his own percentage of 27%. Then you will take the 27%. You will see the next 27%, and you're seeing you are assigning to him after that 90. The cutoff for general category is first taken out, and after that is done, whatever remains, you will again provide for recruitment on the basis within that group what is the highest mark. So within scheduled caste, you look at what are the highest marks. Then there is 94, 82, 42, 64. Then that 92 has already come in the general category, has already gone. He will not participate and share it along with others. So he has gone in general category already. And while a general category person cannot come to 42 and compete, within that scheduled caste, or whatever are the next highest 15 percentage, they will go in that. So this is how the vertical is that which is not shared with anyone else. They will have it independently. They will share with the general, what will be the general candidate? If we can compete with the general candidate and come along with it, you'll take it. In horizontal reservation, what happens is you will draw up the order of merit. You will assign on the order of merit a position. Supposing you have a handicapped person, 3% you will provide. A handicapped person has 96%, 92%, 46%. Let us say that is the mark which is got. In the order of merit, in the first, when you are making, you would have first taken that 90 to 100, I said was 50%, 50% are there. So these persons were gone. For counting horizontal reservation, you will look for the particular category. Where is he? Is he there anywhere? If he is there anywhere in the total number of 100 persons, you will find 3 persons there, 2 in the general category, 1. You will have only 1 separately as a handicapped person. You will figure with lower marks. But because he has already occupied from the higher marks, you will not again take it from the lower mark. So that you will find horizontal reservation will represent in the whole organization. If it is provided 3%, you will have only 3 persons. But when you are talking about vertical reservation, when you are talking about 27% for OBC or 15 or 7%, there may not be only that 49%. There may be much more persons as well. As many persons as they have competed in the general category and taken them. So therefore, apart from what is reserved to them or what they are exclusively entitled, which they will not share with anyone, they will also be able to secure admission elsewhere when they are competed in the general category. So a vertical is something which you will, the bare minimum, what they are assured of that, they will not be in any way denied, is what is vertical. Horizontal is when you look around all the numbers, look at it figuratively, you see like this, your imagery must be that. Horizontal is when you spread the whole thing there. You look at 3, yeah, anywhere 3. If it's the first category, in the order of merit, lower. That is horizontal. Vertical is you are seeing them separately, you assign them separately, and then see them also sharing with others. That is what is vertical and horizontal. Have I made myself clear? Horizontal. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You will have to read a judgment rendered by Justice H.S. Sidhu, relying upon the judgment of Uttarakhand, which clarifies that issue. Sir, though you had not covered one of the topics of catching up of the pay, I remember that while sitting with Justice M.S. Gill, you had given a judgment of Charan Das. Could you just explain, because that was also a judgment of catching up in respect of the pay. After relying upon Ajit Singh judgment, you had said that the pay has to be stepped up once you have caught up.
I don't remember the judgment of what I wrote.
Charan Das.
Okay, I take it
that was a case wherein you had from clerk to assistant and then senior assistant, and then you have caught up. Then you had said that once you have caught up, then the pay of the general category has to be stepped up at par with that of a reserved category candidate, since he has caught up on the basis of seniority.
Correct. See, we are talking about 2 different principles there. When we are talking about the catching up principles of what Janu talked about, and where it was sought to be annulled through an amendment in the Constitution, we are talking about the position in an organization. Again, when we are talking about position in organization, they are also associated with the pay scales of what a person has. Let us assume there a person, there are 2 persons in the lower rank, lower post, and in that post you have one person who has come in the year 1990. Yet another person comes in the year 2000. Let us say one person is senior, who is a general category candidate. A reserve candidate comes in the year 2000. Because he's a senior, you would have drawn more increments over this period. The next higher post, let us say, is a step. Let us assume in the lower post it is 1,000, 100, 1,500, something like that. The next higher post is 2,200, 200, 3,500. Let us say like that. Now, the moment there is a vacancy there in a higher post, and in that higher post is a particular quota system which operates, makes possible filling up a vacancy for a person of a reserve category. Then because there is a quota, the person who is junior in a lower cadre will move to that. So as soon as he moves up to the higher post, then what would happen? You will now from 1,200, you would jump to the 2,500, the next, or 3,000, whatever I gave already as an example. He occupies the higher post with a higher scale of pay, and he'll be there in the first thing in 3,000. Let us assume 3,200, 4,500. Then he'll be probably at that level 3,000 at the time when he moves there. Now let us assume he is there for 2 years. Then there is another vacancy which is falling in the general category. Then the person who had been senior, who has come in the year 1990, will move to the next post. When he moves to the next post, when we're talking about his retain his seniority, what will happen? He will not start with 3,000. He will start at a post, at a rank and at a scale which is higher than what this person who has already arrived at that place. So therefore, he catches up on his seniority and secures to himself those increments of what would have already availed by a person who was junior and who has come to the higher post. So therefore, the catching up principle makes possible for a person to catch up on his seniority and catch up also on a higher scale of what the person who is junior had secured at a higher post. So the catching up principle of what is normally understood to securing seniority comes with every attendant benefit of what seniority means. What do we understand by a person who is a senior in a rank? Senior in a rank is by the number of years of employment in a particular post, and that seniority must mean something else. That something else is a next higher scale within that increment of what would have come for number of years. These increments are invariably through your performance based and also to the number of years of service. So that increment of what you would do, what you would go to the higher level. Now, this is what is sought to be annulled through an amendment in the Constitution. But then they have qualified it by saying that you need to have appropriate work done already. Statistics must be drawn. That's what Nagaraj said, that you'll have to work out the statistics and find whether this is acceptable or not. And therefore, you have now a new understanding that in order that you make possible for a person, you will not need to provide for catching up. The person who has gone there before, he can retain his seniority. When will that happen? You will see that happens only if you have neat statistics. There are not adequate representation in higher posts, and therefore a person is required to be promoted. He'll retain his seniority also. He will not become a junior as soon as a senior comes to the higher post and he claims his seniority back in the higher post. That is what is the way that law has grown. There is one thing which I did not explain. This is 103rd Amendment of economic criteria as 10%, which is also assured. This is challenged in the Supreme Court, the correctness. And I see some of the posts from Punjab sometime recently of how this 10% reservation, because Gujarat provides for it, Madhya Pradesh provides for it already through, all other states have not done yet. And that's going to be seriously suspect for me. In my mind, I will not say it can survive a constitutional challenge. For while a social backwardness can be permanent and affect the whole family, economic backwardness does not necessarily affect at all times. In 1 year, you may probably be poor. The next year, probably you have come by some better job, or if you're in business, you have got a greater profit. Or within the same family, one person could be economically empowered, another person not so. The next year, he may be economically empowered, the other person may fall down. So therefore, the principle of reservation requires a certainty. You need to know who are the classes who are going to be benefited. For each year, you are going to be assigning an economic prosperity or economic criterion. You will not know within the same family whether you will be able to apply a reservation. One son will be able to secure an admission on the basis of economic reservation. Yet another son in the same family may not. Or at that time, if the economic condition of the father had improved, you will lose out on reservation. So within the same family, you will find one person bagging a reservation, another person does not. Or the same man who secures the reservation, another year he may not. So therefore, there can be enormous unpleasantness. And also, I started with saying the reservation must be understood essentially as a social justice concept. That it's not on economic considerations alone. Economic considerations are for so many other things. But if you're talking about reservation through economic consideration, that will be a dangerous thing. Of very many people in the scheduled caste or scheduled tribe, they carry the tag irrespective of the movements where they have gone. Even then, they're seen differently. Is the reality. So therefore, that's just a point which I omitted. It's not any question which is coming, but I thought I should tell you of one important area which I didn't address, which is how very important through an amendment which has come about. Yeah.
We have unmuted Srinivas Mulugri wants to ask a question in respect of the clarification horizontal reservation.
Yeah, tell me what is the first clarification?
Yeah. Sir, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, in our Telangana state, in most of the universities, while following the horizontal rule, they are fixing these defense personalities, sports quota or PSC within the 50% of reservation quota, but not they are taking criteria the above 50% general category. So is it wrong, sir, or we have to consider
50%? You're saying if the horizontal reservation is for within, that is, if you are taking 50% as a general category, you are fixing it within first 50%. Then that's what it is, horizontal. See, first you will see that you take it within 50% is not correct. Horizontally spread all the seats which are available. Try and see that if you are providing the sports quota 3%, that 3%, 3 persons must be picked up from out of that whole lot, irrespective of where he is picked up from, whether he comes from the general category or the reserve category. It doesn't make a difference. That he comes in the whole scheme of things, in the order of merit. When you pick up 100 persons in the order of merit, that is how you fix the 100 seats first. In that order of merit, you take the number 3 persons must come. If he is there in number 2 position, number 56 position, number 60 position, you will take number 2, that 56 and 60, all that you will take. So you will find, therefore, the first 50 will go to general category. If I say, yes, taken only 1. If you are saying Karnataka provides that 3 posts will come from the first 50 or the next 50, I can't understand if they're applying horizontal reservation. I won't even be able to see a rationale in that kind of understanding. For horizontal reservation must be understood from an imagery of what I gave to you. It should simply be spread all that like the cards are on the table. Find out how many seats are there available and pick up as many seats as they are required to be filled up by the predetermined percentage of reservation that you provided for those class of persons.
So thank you, sir. Sir, Vikas, sir, could you please repeat that case law with regard to horizontal reservations?
That I will post it in the group. It is by Justice H.S. Sidhu, the judge from the Punjab and Haryana High Court. He has relied upon an Uttarakhand judgment around 2013 or 14, which clarifies that the horizontal reservation, as what Justice Kannan has said, that it will not consume once you are coming within the general category.
Sir, please post the name of the case law, sir, in group. Thank you.
I will post it in the WhatsApp group.
Sir, thank you, sir.
Mr. Anand Bhardwaj asks, sir, a handicapped candidate belonging to a scheduled caste category, will he be considered in the horizontal reservation or a vertical reservation?
Vertical reservation. Any scheduled caste first, he will secure it there, and no matter that he is handicapped person, he will take it there. Yet another handicapped person will be able to secure there. Therefore, you make possible. Let us therefore assume there is 1 post for handicapped person. There is a handicapped person who is also a scheduled caste person. You are going to provide scheduled caste person something, and horizontal through a horizontal reservation, a person who is not a scheduled caste will also bag 1 seat. So therefore, you will have 2 handicapped persons, 1 claiming through a vertical reservation, 1 claiming through a horizontal reservation. So that is possible. One decision of what you were asking was Union of India versus Selvakumar. This was 2017 3 SCC 504. Explains to you what horizontal reservation is and the relaxation for physically handicapped. Both of them coming the civil service examination. That's a decision in the Supreme Court recently, which explains to you the horizontal reservation. So there was the previous question. That person can look at this decision.
Srinivas, you can note down the judgment.
Srinivas, that was 2017 3 SCC. Page 504. The Union of India versus Selvakumar. That's a case which went from Madras High Court.
Sanjay asks, have paths other than reservation been suggested for social justice, like in the Mandal report itself, that could be effective?
See, we have understood empowerment through several things. We are talking about loans to be given, guarantee our nationalization program, or what the Congress party thought about when Indira Gandhi was there, was to see that the way the loans are given to persons who are socially disempowered, persons who come from the rural background with little education, who, if they have some vocational skills, we should be able to give them. So therefore, provide them with incentives like loans, take only personal guarantees, not look for property guarantees. There have been some methods of disbursement of loans through which we wanted to empower. And that is what Indira Gandhi called at that time a 20-point program of securing empowerment to people. So Mandal Commission itself is essentially concerned about the cause for the backwardness and the recommendations as to how this backwardness would go. Mandal Commission's recommendations was therefore seen in the context of examining the population, examining the caste structures in India, of the census of what was done in the year 1931 was taken, and they were seeing so many classes of persons are backward. Those classes can be easily identified through the caste affiliations of what they belong, and therefore the empowerment can come through reservations which will secure to them by, apart from the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, these are the backward classes who must be empowered. Let us give 27%. Mandal Commission therefore essentially is an enumeration of caste and the caste-based backwardness and the empowerment that can be secured through education and employment. This is what the Mandal Commission is about. I don't think it has any other recommendation relating to their empowerment. Probably education is what I already said. Without reference to a social standing, whenever we talk about social justice, I want you to know it is different from the economic perspective, that there is a recognition for you in the post that you occupy is a daily felt experience from everyone. And government job, we all understand. I have known when I was there of a person who was an engineer who didn't have a problem about taking an employment in government service as a gardener. So therefore, these are realities that if it's a government job, it's all acceptable. That's the way of social upliftment, social upward mobility. That is an Indian context. So probably an Indian fixation. We were identifying the bureaucracy, the government through the Babus and through the English people, the higher attainments. So probably that fixation has not gone out of us. And that is how the commission recommendations also came out.
So this is by R. Gomti. It is more. Do you think that the concept of reservation nowadays had to be proved a failure with respect of grant of equal distribution of opportunity to the really deserving sections of the society? Rather, it's leaning on the priority being given on the basis of vote banks.
That there also vote banks is incidental, but I think reservation has not been a failure at all. I will not accept that, because I was showing to you the statistics of how in the year 1959 you had class 1 post, we had just about 1.18%. Through the reservation policy of reservation, promotion, reservation for promotion, also education reservation, all that has helped them to secure. They have come as far in class 1 post to 11%, which is good, and that wouldn't have happened without the policy of reservation. And also, if you have been able to see fairly a large number of people in higher posts, that is not good enough. They still fall short of the percentage from 15% to 7%, 22%. We should be able to see clearly the 22% occupied if you're talking about SC and ST only, if you're talking about OBC also, if you're seeing that much people there in all across the higher institutes of learning as well as in employment, then you say reservation, even without it they have come up. Why do you still have reservation, you may say. There may be some form of reservation in every country. This is what I want you to know. In USA, there is still, they don't call it reservation. They talk about the affirmative action. They have the Hispanics, they have the Afro-Americans, they have the original Indians, the Red Indians, who still require empowerment, who still require access to education, health, and employment. And there is an affirmative action, they provide for that. And there are any number, there is a Supreme Court judgment from USA which talks about reservation in the affirmative action relating to Hispanic representation. Merit at all times is not the criterion for admission into education institutions. That was the defense of a law university from Texas. I said, we want representation from all sections of people in our judiciary, in our courts, in the lawyers, in the lawyer community. Therefore, it will not be merely on the basis of what marks a person has secured, I will take admission. So even advanced countries, they have problems. And so long as human beings are born differently with different abilities, we will have some kind of people requiring some assistance. Does it not happen in our own families that there is a person who is bright, yet another person not as bright? One child just sprightly and playful, another person has some illness, and how does the mother care? The mother cares for a child which is sick all the more, isn't it? Doesn't mean that she doesn't love the other boy who is ebullient and who is going and playing outside. She sees who is the person who would require my assistance. That is essential. A mother would say, all my sons are equal and therefore I'll treat them equally. It will not happen. In her mind, they're all equal. But she knows one person would require her prop, her hand, her pallu to be hang on to. That is essential. And that is what we are talking about reservation. So if you're thinking they're vote banks, they will continue to be like that probably, you never know. But that is not to be worried about. For reservations are essential. It's a constitutional goal. For heaven's sake, don't ever think this is something bad. It's a bad word. It's not bad. It's not bad word at all. On the other hand, you must recognize it's a manner of bringing us all at par. We had social reasons, we had historical reasons why we see people differently. Do they not see Martin Luther King's expression somewhere in the 1960s still echoes for us? For that lot of persons who arrived in US, like the whites also arrived from the 18th, 17th century, when James II period, there was a persecution, all the Catholics went, they had to go away from the place. They arrived in places which they called as New York, New Hampshire, every English name they came and settled there. But there were original persons. Along with them came also the Africans. But they were denied right to properties. They could not acquire properties. They were treated as slaves. But their contribution, without the contribution, USA could never have grown. Do we not therefore see that the lack of property of what was given, in spite of their propensities truly appreciated in so many other fields? Look at an America without African singing. Look at America, USA, without the Afro-American athletes. Look at America without the dancing propensities of the Afro-Americans. There is nothing, no culture for them, apart from what the Afro-Americans brought to them. That is what, they are all required to be empowered, and they require assistance. The same way we must see here in India. These are all persons who have been there for centuries and persons, and you need to provide to them the scope. And if they offer us vote banks for some persons, so be it. We shouldn't worry. We should think that what they deserve, they must get. And don't crib about reservation. I want you to have a different orientation. It's a constitutional goal of equality. And therefore, we must pledge ourselves to reservation. So long as we don't achieve the kind of equality which is desirable in the society, then there's something seriously wrong. We should still provide to them. That's how I look at it.
So we will be taking the last question. We are unmuting Ravish. Ravish, we are unmuting you. You can ask the question directly.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Ravish.
Yeah. So can you please elaborate on the concept of carrying forward or adjustment of the unfilled reserved seats?
Carrying forward is probably you should see Ravish through the Janua exposition and what has come through Ajit Singh 1, 2, and those decisions will be the right answers for you to understand what they mean. I think I tried to explain. If I've not been able to make you understand, probably it's better that you read it yourself. On a very simple principle, I'll only say that in any post, there are always a certain number of, let us say, junior engineer post. Before that, let us say, it's a foreman who comes as a junior engineer, a higher post. And junior engineers, let us assume there are 4 persons. And you have one vacancy, one person is retired, there is one vacancy. Now, there is a person who is the lower rank. This post was in a rostered point. Let us assume that this was for a forward community. Now, when we are talking about reservation, we are talking about filling a person to a particular post. And even in that roster, supposing in the lower cadre, there is no forward community, there are 1B backward. Probably you will go up. So wherever you find a person moving up by a particular quota which is available at a higher rank, and then yet another person who comes up at his turn, and then who had been senior in the lower cadre. Now, the moment he comes up, he will catch up on the seniority. A person who has been a senior at a lower rank will catch up on seniority the moment he comes up to the higher post, to a particular post which is reserved and which is available for him. So catching up principle operates to understand the question of where he is positioned in terms of his seniority. So therefore, the catching up will always happen in relation to the rank which he held as a senior or junior in a lower cadre. So therefore, to assigned seat could be, assignment can arise through various situations. It can be through a kind of a rotational roster which is prepared in a particular rank, in a particular cadre. So therefore, fix all these things. Understand concept of how many vacancies is there in the higher post. How does a person move to the higher post? What will determine is entitlement to be taken on promotion? What are the policy guidelines which are given? Where is the seniority point which is taken there in the lower cadre? In that seniority, where was he? But he has gone earlier, even before his senior could go, because of a particular vacancy to a particular category was available there in the higher post, and therefore he has gone earlier. The moment he comes, he catches up. Right now, there is no constitutional guarantee for this this thing, because it has come through an amendment, and it is said now the catching up principle is not any longer to be followed, is how the amendment has been made. But they have qualified it. They said now, when Nagaraj upheld the amendment, they said now you need to have definite statistics to support that a higher post does not have adequate representation, and therefore a person who moves up early can retain that seniority. See, that is how Nagaraj explains, and that is how the law essentially exists. So go to understanding. They have right now a constitutional relevance in a lesser sense, this catching up principle now after an amendment has come, but not many states have framed the rules to allow for retention of seniority. So it is an enabling provision like anything else is, and that should come after an appraisal done through statistics of the representation in higher post.
Sir, actually, I wanted to know about the carrying forward, like the seats remain unfilled at the recruitment level only.
Correct.
Supposedly,
so
carrying forward of those seats or adjustment.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't understand. The carrying forward rule was originally conceived as not which is possible. You can't carry forward. Each year will exhaust it. Was what in 19. I think the decision was sometime in Vinod Kumar. I think the carry forward rule was one of the earlier rulings. Is Devadasan. I think Devadasan was Union of India in 1964. The reference is 1964, page 179. So therefore, they said you can't keep it vacant for any length of time. They were referring to, they were interpreting Article 16(4), and they said you can't keep it, you can't carry forward. The vacancy lapses by the end of the year. So each year you will look at it, and you will find out how many persons have to be taken. They'll be taken in. Now, this created some problem because so many places there were no vacancies. There were not enough adequate persons in a particular lower post to be filled up to a higher post where there fell a vacancy. So it lapsed. It kept losing the significance. So a lopsided allocations took place at higher posts, and they were not sufficiently filled up by persons to whom they were reserved. Let us assume in a higher post you have 2 vacancies for scheduled castes, and a person that was to be filled up only through promotees, and there is no scheduled caste candidate at a lower level. What do we do? I already showed to you some statistics. In class 1, class 2, if a person were to go from class 2 to class 1, the adequate representation in class 2 for scheduled caste does not exist. So therefore, what do? They lose right to promotion in that year. Next year, there is a person. By that time, that vacancy is already filled up by taking a general candidate. What would happen? So therefore, persons are losing at the idea of providing for reservation and providing for particular categories to be filled up by particular persons through a quota system didn't work. So there was a complete collapse of the rota quota system. This is typically you query on this collapse of rota quota system. Then you will find where is this the carry forward rule, how is it to be applied. So therefore you would see now there is a constitution amendment will say you can, Devadasan is statutorily and constitutionally amended. Devadasan decision in 1964 Supreme Court and the later judgment in Punjab, state of Punjab versus Hiralal, that was 1973 SCC page 567. Look at these 2 decisions, you will understand what this principle is about, and how the constitutional amendment was was introduced to annul these 2 decisions of this.
Right. So we have fortuitously Justice Kannan as a speaker, and we have Advocate Kannan who wants to ask a question to you.
Yeah, good.
Good evening, sir. May I audible, sir?
Sir,
sure. It was an excellent session, sir. It was such a thought-provoking session. And thank you, sir. Thank you for such a
vote of
session,
thanks
sir.
already said, because please take note. Nobody else will deliver the vote of thanks. Yeah, Kannan, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Sir, and first of all, I'm sorry for such a lengthy forthcoming question, sir. Sir, we have been seeing that the peoples are recruited through the examination conducted by various service commissions, and they have to score above the cutoff mark irrespective of their community, etc. in such thing, and they are employed for the post subject to the reservation of respective quota of the community. So in our case, let us see in this way, sir. For example, the person belonging to A community has to score 40%, and the person belonging to B community has to score 35%, and the person belonging to C community has to score 30%. In this case, the person who belongs to B community but scores less than 34%, which is less than fixed 35%, so obviously he cannot get in. But a person who scores less than a person belonging to B community, but he gets in because he belongs to C community. Sir, my question is whether this type of criteria, that is discrimination based on marks, is per se arbitrariness. And
yeah.
Since there is a...
I've understood your question, Kannan.
Yeah.
This was in fact originally dealt with by the Supreme Court in Vinod Kumar versus Union of India, 1996 SCC, page 580. Have a look at that. I'm simply saying
sir.
that. They were saying relaxation of qualifying marks and standards of evaluation in matters of reservation is not permissible. This is what they said. They said, no, don't qualify. If you keep a benchmark, you will not make possible a relaxation of that condition for any person. Now, this you will find as over a period of time, through an amendment, they said a different qualification can be made. This was done through lowering quality. This came through an amendment. This was a specific amendment coming through 82nd Amendment 2000. So therefore, your question has an answer through 82nd Amendment. It's a constitutional goal, Kannan. So therefore, we said we different qualify. I also started with saying that judiciary and courts have literally here in matters of reservation have displaced each other, wanted to outreach one another. So when Vinod Kumar said, now you can't dilute standards and qualifications marks, you can't relax. This is what the Supreme Court ruling, and then that was the way it could have been done. Later, the Parliament said no, it is not like that. So if we must make meaning out of all this, I want you to only know that mark. I also started with saying, Kannan, that don't think reservation is for alleviation of poverty. Not at all so. Reservation is for economic empowerment. Not so. I was saying reservation see through as social justice. That is what I started with saying. So therefore, that various caste in society, in the way they are placed in their varnas, is also the public perception of where a person belongs, the higher, the lower, and things. It should go out of our mind. That is a whole new generation which must make it happen. We are caught still in that kind of a time warp of you belong to that and therefore you are this. You belong to this caste, therefore you come somewhere lower. This is the kind of a fixation which we must probably rid ourselves of. And how can we rid ourselves of that? Through these kind of empowering provisions, which it is hoped in course of time will modify. I was showing to you therefore statistics to say that by the reservation formula, this thing, we have been able to secure something good. In fact, I wish you can access this article. Please see affirmative action in government jobs in India. This is just note, Kannan. Did the job reservation policy benefit disadvantaged groups? This is by a journal of Asian and African Studies, 2020, volume 55. These are Deepak Kumar, Banu Pratap, Archana Agarwal. It's available in the net. You please see. It's an original article, a researched article, where they see that this reservation has helped, and that is what we want. It is not merely empty promises to bag votes somewhere. It is essential that we see empowerment coming, and that is how it is. So therefore, why is lower mark to be rewarded? Lower mark is rewarded because for the same principle of what probably in the horse race you provide for handicaps, in the golf we provide for handicaps. So in sports also provide for some handicaps and then allow for somebody to be placed slightly in front. Is fair enough. The fairness, what are we seeing? In some way, we need some restoration of imbalance of what has crept in over a period of time. Our attempt is to restore a balance. Some other imbalance may take place at some other point of time. Then we will have a different principle. At all times, the society must be responsive through some flexible approaches and ensure that there is a level playing field obtained for everyone. So don't worry that 2-3 marks. You never know. Those 2-3 marks don't mean anything at all. That is not even probably a correct fair assessment. But we have no other thing, and therefore we take marks as relevant. But in the ultimate scheme of things, these marks must wither away. Ultimately, if he comes into a particular post, let us talk about the education institution, he is not rewarded marks on the basis of your caste. He is rewarded marks the same way as everyone else is the mark. So therefore, there is therefore a balance obtained at some other point of time. So that's how it will take place.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you, Vikas, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, well, the last question: is there any vertical reservation? No. This is by Santa Silan. Is vertical reservation only in the case of scheduled caste, or does it also apply in the case of OBC?
It applies also in the case of OBC. That 27% is also vertical reservation.
Right. So the session, as we all know, when we have Justice Kannan amongst us, maybe whatever topic it is, but the way it is seamlessly put across to all of us, by the end of the session, you feel that you have actually gained immense knowledge. And as they say that the books are the best friends, but sometimes after the webinars, you feel they are the best friends. They are much better than the books because books do not contain visuals as such. It may be audible, etc. So it was a fantastic session. And tomorrow, since keeping in view the lockdown and the circumstances which have crept in of where suicides, etc. have taken place, we are holding a webinar tomorrow. As we all say that the platform is Beyond Law and Beyond Law. Therefore, tomorrow the topic would be mental health pathways. We have 5 subject experts, one on career counseling, one on mental health, one on teamness. So do stay connected tomorrow at 4 p.m. since nowadays we are holding webinars at 4 p.m. So thank you. Words cannot just express the gratitude the way you have been explaining things to us. Everyone stay safe, stay healthy. All those who have stayed connected to us on the platform as well as on the Facebook. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Right, sir.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity, Vikas. We'll see you again later.
Thank you, sir.